Rachel, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am so pleased to have you here and for you to share with our listeners just how much travel has inspired your recipe creation journey. And I'm really excited to have you talk about these places that have had such a big impact on your life and your work. So before we get started, would you mind telling our listeners what it is that you do in the vegan space?
Oh, absolutely. So I love creating recipes that take the essence of a culture and popular dishes, things that people would eat during celebratory situations, and keep their essence, keep their texture, their profiles, all the spices and everything, and just remove all the meat protein and put plant-based in its stead. In my travels, I'm always amazed by the different spices and ingredients that are abundantly available. And I feel like we're limited in the food that we eat. And I really just wanted to build something where I got to incorporate more things and also keep like the culture and like the feeling you get when you eat something that you haven't eaten since you were a child, and then share it with other people. And I've never really seen a cookbook where there's multiple countries represented. It's usually we're doing a book on this country, and then you end up buying like 50 books and you're like, okay, which book do I want? So obviously that was something that I really enjoyed. So that was like how it all started. Me being like, I want to eat all these types of food. They're not really available for me. The amount of restaurants that I personally enjoy visiting felt limited. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to make these recipes myself. And then it just went from there. And I was like, I have all these ideas in my head. I might as well break them down. And that's how the first book came along. And I was like, I really want to have more countries. So the whole idea was it's always going to be a 4-part volume book series. So volume was done. Here it is. It actually is just won its second International Book Award. So this is
congrats.
It'll be on the next print. And then this is my mock-up of volume 2. That's why
my goodness.
Resale, but it is available online.
So for listeners, vegan flavors of the world, right?
Absolutely. Vegan flavors of the world. And if you type that in, you'll find both. And I'm currently working on the third one right now. So I'm working also on my travels. There's 2 countries in the third book that I haven't visited yet. And I really want to visit all the countries to like really get an essence. So we're trying to figure it out. In the third book, I wanted to do like still popular countries, but a couple like countries I feel like that are underrepresented. In Africa, I'm going to go to Eritrea. And then also I was like, oh, you know what? I don't think there's much stuff like for Bhutan. So I was like, I'm going to do that for one of my Asia countries.
Fabulous. I have not been to Eritrea, but I have been to Bhutan. And yeah, it's a beautiful place to visit. And I had some tasty food there. Lots of sort of Chinese influence, sort of Nepalese foods. I'm sure you already know that. How did travel become central to your like culinary identity?
I definitely think it wasn't like one dramatic moment necessarily. I think it was like gradual realization while visiting like markets and sitting down to traditional meals. I kept noticing that many dishes people had been cooking for generations were already like plant forward, and a lot of things like lentil, beans, vegetables, grains, herbs, olive oils, spices, and these weren't like modern adaptations. They were like foundational. And I really just thought that shifting my entire mindset and using those items, I could just stop thinking in terms of vegan substitutions and just start thinking in terms of honoring traditions that had already been centered around plants.
Fabulous. And do you have like a strategy when you're going traveling to how to become very familiar or to have a lot of experiences when you visit a country, maybe visiting markets first or doing a ton of research or listening to podcasts? Like, how do you approach that research process?
Honestly, I get most of my ideas not always from going into a restaurant and like trying food. When I start researching, I like go in with a sense of humility and I try and study the history and understand the role of the country, the role of the dish. And a lot of times, like if there's something I want to put in the book, I'll just go online, type in the dish. But instead of looking at other people's recipes, it's more like I'll go and type in what is the origin of this dish. And it's really funny because sometimes you're like, oh, I thought this originated in this country. It didn't. It actually, people from like Dutch regions came over to here and then it became a beloved food. And then because this spice came on a ship and then it was incorporated in this country. And I'm like, that's really interesting. I love that. And so I really try and understand that. And then I try and preserve the core elements. So I try and use spices and cooking methods and intention when I'm making the foods, and then I adapt something that I believe is what I do. But I keep the whole ingredients and maintain the spirit of the dish rather than trying to over-engineer and replace items. And that's how I try and honor the soul of the food, not so much reinventing it like for novelty. Every now and then, like a new idea will pop in my head and I'm like, this is a fusion dish.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm like, but I just love it. So some of those did end up in the book, but usually I try and pick something that I'm like, no, this feels like you would find it in that country. They're just like a slight variation.
Awesome. Okay. So we're going to talk about Spain first. I'm guessing Spain was included in one of your cookbooks that you have written so far.
Yeah.
Now, Spain traditionally is thought of as to be very unvegan friendly. You decided to choose to focus on Spain in your books. What was that experience like?
So it was funny because I love like Barcelona and like other very popular areas in Spain, but one of my favorite areas in Spain is actually in Basque region. And it actually has the highest amount of Michelin star restaurants per capita. And it's very special to me because my husband and I got engaged there. So we go back every 6 years or so, and there's this restaurant we absolutely love called Aquelarre in San Sebastián. And sometimes it was challenging because like you want to do the tasting menu and I'd have to pick and choose things I could eat, but they have been exceptional. And especially when we went back for our 10-year wedding anniversary, we emailed them and we were like, hey, can you make it vegan for me? And they were so accommodating. And they were like, absolutely. Oh. They invited us into the kitchen and we met the chef. It was really amazing. But I feel like the vegan menu felt just as intentional as like the refined foods that they always use. It wasn't like I felt like anything was lacking or it was like an afterthought.
You didn't get good value or something.
Yeah, they still included all the technical and elegant and like layered flavors. And it was funny because some of the items, they were like, oh, this is already vegan. So it was easy to incorporate it. And then some of them, they were like, we just took the fish away and put this instead. But the experience showed me that even other really high-end restaurants, they're like starting to incorporate plant-based cuisine and see how it belongs at like the highest culinary levels. So it really expanded my confidence of what is possible creatively, especially with other chefs.
Yeah, for sure. That's amazing. And you've also spent quite a bit of time in Japan as well, another country that is not known as being very vegan friendly. And I can vouch that is true. When you go to restaurants, non-vegan restaurants, I should say. What were your takeaways from that destination?
Yeah, no, I think it taught me to pay attention to like restraint, because not every dish, like you said, needs... Like they like to build on multiple bold flavors to complete things. When I was working on my recipes, it sometimes helped me to just sit in harmony. And I felt like that was powerful. The whole thing with Japanese food is to have that fish sauce, like umami flavor. So I was like, but there's ways to do that with different acids and texture and visual components. You get like seaweed and you soak it and other things, and then you can mimic the taste without having to use non-plant-based items. So you just have to be a little bit mindful, a little bit creative, and work around things. So like in the second chapter, I do have Japan, and I have sushi, and then I actually have a sushi dessert.
Oh.
So it's like fruit-based, yeah. So I thought it was really fun because I'm like, people love to understand how to make sushi. So it's really like you can put anything in it. So you just have to, that was something, yeah. So I just like designed recipes and tried to make them visually appealing while keeping their culture in mind.
And may I ask where you went to in Japan to get these experiences?
At the time, my sister was living in Tokyo. So we spent most of our time there. It was great just walking around the cities and seeing what was available in restaurants, especially some of the ramen houses were just great.
All right, fun. Okay, what about Italy and Israel? We've paired these two together. Tell us about these two destinations.
Israel's really interesting because I actually lived there for 3.5 years. At the time, I was a child, but my parents raised me vegan. And at that time in the late 80s, it was not easy. So I remember baking with my mom and our cakes were very flat.
Yes. Very dense.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know about this, but I just felt like the energy of shared plates and dips and salads and breads and just the spreads were really powerful. And I remember loving going to the market and I was like obsessed with halva. And I actually ended up putting it in my book because I was like, I love it. Every time you go to the market, they always like give you little tasters.
Halva is sesame seeds and sugar candy / dessert, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's great. But yeah, so that was the communal style of the food also reinforced the nourishment, I feel like.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I have not been to Israel, but I've been in a few countries around there. And I also love that part of it, like family style sharing plates is really fun.
Yeah,
sorry,
which
go
is
ahead.
very similar to Italy. Like they love to do family style. I feel like some of their food can be super complex, but also the simplicity of some of the pastas and they're visiting like local markets and seeing how seasonal produce is treated with reverence and being really transformative. And then they also are focusing on not overcomplicating dishes, like just taking truffles and oil and pouring it over fresh pasta and olive oil and fresh vegetables and herbs, like just picking something from the garden. Even like ripping up basil and throwing it on your salad. It really just builds the food. So for that country, I felt like there was a lot that I could take and it was a little bit easier to make the recipes plant-based because most of it just replacing the creams. And luckily nowadays there's some plant-based cream and cheese alternatives. So that was less challenging for me and keeping with the food for those.
Yes, I think that like southern Italy is like really vegan friendly and central Italy is still pretty vegan friendly. And then in the north, the far north, it can be much more challenging for sure. So throughout all of your travels, have you had any culinary experiences as well as the Acagere place in Spain that have been real standouts to you?
Yeah, that restaurant in Spain is like one that I go back to all the time. There were some places in Morocco that were really surprising. It's every now and then you're just like randomly on the street and you just grab a snack and you're like, oh my God, this was amazing. And you don't even remember where you were. That I would say Aquilare is like the one place that really stood out.
Oh, I'm going to have to put it on the list. That would be awesome.
If you go, you have to book months in advance.
Is it a pricey restaurant?
Yes. It is pricey, and I think they only do the tasting menu now, but it's 9 courses. The food is exceptional, but yeah, it's, I think, around $600 US per person.
Per person, okay. I'm imagining that if you've done the Santiago de Compostela, that would be a really fabulous reward for finishing, because it finishes in Santiago.
Yeah, it's definitely an experience. It's not an everyday, like you go there every night, you'd be very full.
All right. So you've shared some really fun tips of how travel has inspired your work and how you're sharing that with the world. You mentioned you've got a few more destinations to cover for your upcoming books. Where are they again?
Well, I'm going to go to Eritrea in Africa and then
that's right. And so tell us, when will the books be out and what's your timeline for creating the other 2 books?
Also, volume 1 and 2 are out currently. So both of them are available. Volume 3, I am currently writing my batch recipes. So the way I like to work is I build my layout and then I write down like the recipes that I want to include. And then I put notes down. And I find that like sometimes I will just figure out all the countries, all the recipes. And then once I have that all, I will sit down and write each recipe. And then once I have about 20 or 30, that's usually when I just take my computer into my kitchen and I start making them. At that point, I'm like, actually, I want to add this, or I need to take a little bit of this out or something. So that, I would say volume 3 will probably be out sometime at the end of the year, maybe beginning of 2027, but literally just started in about a week and a half ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and volume 2, I published it like 2 weeks ago. I just finished editing it and getting it all ready. So it's brand new baby. Volume 1 has been out since October of 2024.
So we're getting to the end of our conversation. Thank you so much. I'm curious if you wouldn't mind answering a couple of little rapid fire questions about vegan travel. What is your most favorite travel app that helps you get around the place, food or otherwise?
When I'm traveling, I love using TripAdvisor, especially when I'm looking for restaurants. I feel like they're great because you can put exactly what you want. You can put where you are and put like radius, and then also like the type of food, how much you want to spend. And then I really like Happy Cow because same thing. They'll tell you exactly which restaurants are completely like plant-based, which ones are vegetarian, which ones aren't, but we'll have options for you, which is a lifesaver sometimes because I know there's certain countries and I'm literally just eating bread for 4 days and I'm like, oh my God, I'm starving. We got to find a store to buy some nuts and fruit.
Right.
So yeah, those I think are really great.
Yep. And are you checked-in bags or carry-on only?
Oh, it depends on where I'm going. It's easier. Like I prefer carry-on only because I don't want to have to carry a million things. But when I'm going somewhere where the temperature is cold, then it's almost impossible because then all your clothes are super bulky. And so just your shoes alone take up half your suitcase. And your jacket takes up the other half. It depends where I'm going.
And are you packing cube or no packing cube? They're like a prism and they've got a zip around them so that you can separate your clothes. And the modern ones these days, they have a compression feature so they can squish things down.
Yeah.
I'll have one for my undergarments and then I'll have another one for t-shirt tops and then another one for like dresses and pants and that kind of thing. And it just keeps things organized.
No, I don't have one of those. I do have an extensive toiletry bag divided into vitamins and makeup and things that you hope you never need, but if you don't bring, then you'll end up having to buy them. So Band-Aids and things like that.
Sure. And what are a couple of destinations that are on your bucket list?
Oh, there's so many places I want to go. I still want to get to some of the Greek islands. We're trying to figure out some way to sail around there. So many places in Africa that I still want to visit. Would like to do some more traveling around like South America and definitely Asia. There's just so many little places that I haven't been able to get to. But yeah, no, definitely. I feel like even though I am lucky enough that I get to travel a lot, I've only seen like 10% of the world.
For sure. All right. And how can people follow you if they would like to stay on top of what it is that you're doing?
Absolutely. Anything at Adina's Delicacies. The website's adinasdelicacies.com. All the social media handles, Adina's Delicacies. And the book is called Vegan Flavors of the World, or if you just search Adina Mullen, Rachel Adina Mullen, it should just pop up.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Chef Adina, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.